Yeah, I figured I'd do a video response to at least part of another video by this stupid variable ass guy who responded to the guy who cleaned up my video, which I don't, it's funny, but it really doesn't. If people have intelligence, the words like asshole really shouldn't get in their way, and if they do get in their way, they're really not intelligent people. And intelligence is always going to gravitate towards an argument. I mean, if there's an argument to be had, and intelligence isn't going to worry about where the argument's coming from or who's speaking it. I mean, if somebody's saying something that's intriguing and challenging to what you're saying, you're going to want the argument. You're going to want the chance to demonstrate, no, you're wrong, and this is why you're wrong. Unless you have no confidence in what you're talking, the crap you're talking. Then you might run away and hide. Then you might find excuses to say, no, I can't take it because he's too big a sissy or he's got too strange a personality. I mean, these are just cop-out loser excuses. And they have nothing to do with somebody who's really interested in a good argument about the truth and what our reality is. So anyway, I'll play the second half. The first half was just a waste of time. It's all this snarky little, sorry, but this is I mean, it's not even childish because it's too clever for a 5-year-old, but it's on the emotional level of a 5-year-old. It's a tantrum, using multi-syllabic words, but it's still just a tantrum. The sissy.
To be
He's the
serious,
fucking sissy.
please define rape and tell me where it came from. You've been posting comments that I think...
Okay, I'll do that for or part of it. Look, we know there's all kinds of, rape is all kinds of scales, okay? It begins with forced activities. Forcing yourself on somebody is rape, basically. And it almost doesn't matter what you're stealing, whether it's sex or whether it's just some part of their personal space. It's a rape of their dignity, let's say. It's a taking. And obviously it goes to extremes that are incredibly brutal and violent and destructive and harsh and, very bad. And then there's others that aren't quite as obviously grotesque in terms of the violation. But depending on who the victim is and her place and her position in the world, or his, as if it's a child, that vulnerability can make it a bigger transgression. But it's no point in doing this let's define rape game, because then there's no point unless you want to come up with about 15 different words for the 15 different kinds or categories of rape. There's just no point. The point is what kind of psychology exists that it first enables somebody to do the taking, and then to do the taking in what is a harsh, brutalish, nasty manner. And those are the two elements let's deal with. The violence element, the force element, what force requires, and the idea that you would take in the first place, be that aggressive.
Has been very insightful and very aggressively excited. You care about this issue. What is rape and where did it come from?
That's a very patronizing thing to say to a woman. Really, that's one of the most disgusting little bits of your crap, your patronizing, putrid crap that you've spilled out of your disgusting, stupid puss, was that little bit of patronizing crap. Yeah, of course a woman might think it's important, because they might have spent their life having to compromise their life, their freedom, because they always had to worry, am I asking for it? Is there some asshole who's going to blame me because I went out and I got a little drunk? There's always going to be some kind of jeopardy. All right, they don't have the same freedom. They got to take along a gang with them when they go out, or do this or do that. All these fucking rules they have to behave based on, because some asshole like you is going to start saying, well, the man couldn't help it. The jackass couldn't help himself because it's part of his evolution and his genes. I mean, fuck you, weasel.
Please post that video. I know I made a claim, and so I need to back it up tonight.
Shit, I hit the wrong button again. All right, so he's saying he's feeble in the way of argument, doing these, all this.
Fact,
Listen to
rape
this.
is not adaptive or advantageous at all. It just exists because of, and now I'm stuck. Now I'm stuck. You beat.
He's got all this patronizing rhetoric, implying that somehow because she's making an argument, he can belittle it and trivialize it, and again, because somehow we're supposed to prove the non-existence of your rape god. It's our obligation. You haven't proven anything. You haven't demonstrated one genetic trait that's been passed on. You haven't been able to show one study. You haven't shown one, like the son of the rapist or the grandson of the rapist or some kind of connection, not one tiny bit of it. And what other people have given you is logical proofs demonstrating why there exists no obvious evidence of this rape gene. And the reason why there's no obvious evidence of it is because there's this whole pile of psychology that's completely dependent on social memes and norms and values that are instilled in people through their maturation, you butthead, and that also has a genetic component over time where, yes, the woman having selection power is good for the species over the long term. All right, there will be no success for a rapist in the real natural world in most social animal societies. All right, it's not going to work. Okay, it's not going to be a genetic advantage, and that's the fucking argument, you idiot. It's not going to be passed down. It's not behavior that's going to end up with a genetic component. But keep playing your stupid game. The fact that human beings have desire is not what we're arguing here, idiot. All right? I mean, is that what you want? The explanation for why does, when the deviance happens, why does it happen violently? Or why does it happen with an erect penis? Or a penis involved in some way? Well, the reason why is because those are the tools that we naturally have, and so those are the tools our deviant psychology plays with. But that doesn't change. That doesn't define how they are genetically made to work or to function as a predisposition, or how in most common, even irregular conditioning they're going to turn out. It's only in extraordinarily poor conditioned environments where somebody is going to be psychotic enough, all right, to be able to commit this, to overcome both the genetic predisposition, and the nature of what your maturation will end up being, unless you are in one of these extreme categories where you either have some sort of biological dysfunction, some sort of hormone problem, combined with an environmental circumstance that feeds that part of a deviant or sick psychology. Fucktard.
In the argument, I'm stuck. Where did it come from? The gang is con stuff, I don't care. Deviant psych, rapists need violence. Like, that's an extreme claim. How do you know that rapists need to see fear in the eyes of their victims?
Well, not all rapists do, but the point is that the ones that obviously commit the violence, the ones that do the most brutal damage to women, obviously are getting off on it. That's why they're doing it. That's why they're committing the act, idiot. And the ones who are doing it more out of a callousness and a disregard, out of an opportunistic taking, they're still got to be comfortable with the fact that they're not participating in a sex act with somebody. They're performing a sex act on somebody, so they have what might be called a sociopath psychology, where they're not critically capable of doing this minor intelligent thing of recognizing that something else has needs and desires and concerns and a welfare that they don't have a right to compromise. All right, and that would be called a brokenness, in my opinion, because it's like the ABCs of being a feeling organism with a brain is figuring out that other people feel, you dumb motherfucker.
Like, that's a very specific claim. How would you know that? Thanks for treating me with respect.
Well, again, that's not the argument. The argument is your argument. You're the one making the claim that has no evidence. And you're the one still pointing to the other side and saying, well, why don't you give me all the evidence? That's not our job. We're not the ones saying something outrageous and stupid. You are. So you're the one that has to come up with the goods, butthead.
The last thing, I'm going to just throw a little bit of stuff at Richard Dawkins, you know. God damn you, Dawkins. Look, the watch is an awful analogy for humans. Now, you worked with Shipley? Shipley is the theologist?
Oh, I don't know. He's wasting time with this nonsense, with this watch analogy. Whatever. Let's move on a little.
May still be enough to accomplish the evolutionary jackpot, which is getting into the next generation.
And so his argument is that there's some subtle underlying rape gene, and that somehow it just sits there buried for, 10 or 12 or 15 generations, and then it shows itself all of a sudden. And, and that's how it's maintained itself over time, or some kind of bogus nonsense like that. Now, it just doesn't work that way. If it had any real advantage, it would be more obvious. It would show up more often. The very idea that there's some little baby being